Welcome to The Explainer. So today we're tackling a big one, an idea so powerful, so revolutionary, that even over 150 years later, it's still one of the most controversial topics out there. I'm talking, of course, about Darwin's theory of evolution. We're going to dig into why it still sparks such fiery debate and why it still matters so much.
And let's start with the man himself, Charles Darwin. Because, he knew this was big trouble. As he was piecing it all together, he wrote this letter to a friend, and he said that sharing his idea, his growing belief that species weren't fixed, was, and I quote, like confessing a murder. A murder. That's how earth-shattering he knew this was going to be.
And boy, was he right to be worried. I mean, you'd think in the 21st century, this would be settled, right? Well, not so fast. Just look at these numbers from a 2005 Pew poll. Less than half, just 48% of Americans believed humans evolved, and a full 42% held a strict creationist view. So yeah, the scientific debate might be over, but the cultural one, it is very much alive.
Okay, so let's get one thing straight right away. You know that story we all learned in school? Darwin, on the Galapagos Islands, sees some finches with different beaks, and bam, eureka, the theory of evolution is born. Yeah, that's a myth. It's a great story, but it's not what happened. Historians have gone through his journals, and the truth is, Darwin actually left the Galapagos still a creationist. The big idea, that came way later, after years and years of slogging through his research back home in England.
So to really get why Darwin's idea was such a bombshell, you have to understand what he was up against. The reigning idea at the time was, well, it was powerful. It was intuitive. It just made sense. And it all comes down to William Paley's watchmaker analogy. The argument goes like this. Imagine you're walking in a field and you find a watch. You wouldn't think, oh, the wind and rain must have assembled this by chance. No way. You know instantly that its intricate design meant there had to be a watchmaker. Paley's point was simple. Look at a bird, a flower, a human eye. They're infinitely more complex than a watch, so they must have had a designer, right? For centuries, that was just common sense.
And then Darwin comes along and offers this totally radical, almost unthinkable alternative. He says, what if it's not a top-down designer with a blueprint? What if it's a bottom-up process with no plan at all? This is the huge shift in thinking. We go from Paley's all-seeing, purposeful watchmaker to what the biologist Richard Dawkins famously called the blind watchmaker. And that blind process? He called it natural selection. The key thing to get here is that it's unconscious. It's not trying to do anything. It can't look into the future and say, it's going to get colder. We should probably grow some thicker fur. Nope. It just works with what's already there in the moment. It's just a simple process that favors any tiny variation that gives an organism a slight edge right here, right now. And the crazy part is how simple the mechanism is. It really just boils down to 5 basic observable facts. 1, populations can grow like crazy, geometrically. But 2, in the real world, they don't. Their numbers tend to stay stable. So 3, that means there must be a struggle for existence. Not everyone makes it. 4, in any species, there's variation. We're not all clones. And 5, the big finale. Any variation that gives an individual a little leg up in that struggle means they're more likely to survive and have kids. And that's it. That's the whole engine. You run that simple filter over millions and millions of years, and you get all the incredible complexity we see around us. Okay, but let's be honest. The pushback against Darwin, it's never really been just about the science, has it? It goes way deeper than that. It hits us right where we live, in our search for meaning, for morality.
And you can see this fear perfectly captured during the famous Scopes monkey trial back in 1925. The prosecutor, William Jennings Bryan, wasn't just debating biology. He was fighting for the soul of society. He believed that evolution wasn't just a theory. It was a threat, a dangerous idea that would eliminate love and carry man back to a struggle of tooth and claw. And for a lot of people, that's what this is really all about. It's not about the fossils. It's about this chain of logic, this syllogism of fear. It goes something like this. If evolution is true, well then maybe you don't need God to explain life. And if you don't need God, then where do you get your morality from? Is there any ultimate right and wrong? And if there isn't, doesn't society just collapse into chaos, a free-for-all? You see, that's the real fear.
So this brings us to what might be the strongest, most sophisticated argument against a purely Darwinian, unguided view of the world. And interestingly,
It doesn't come from biology. It comes from physics, from cosmology.
And it starts with a really profound question. Is our universe fine-tuned for life? I mean, are the basic laws and numbers that govern everything so perfectly, impossibly balanced, that it looks like the whole thing was set up just for us?
This is the core of what's known as the Anthropic Principle. Physicists have found these cosmic numbers, these fundamental constants of nature, and they seem to be dialed in with insane precision. Take omega, for instance. It's basically the amount of stuff in the universe. If it were just a tiny bit different, the universe would have either collapsed back in on itself or expanded so fast that stars and galaxies never could have formed. Same with epsilon, the force that holds atoms together. Tweak it just a little, and poof, no life. The argument is, how could this be an accident? This incredible fine-tuning, they say, looks a lot like design.
So that's a powerful argument. How does science respond? Well, there isn't one single knockout punch. It's more a collection of possibilities.
The first one is basically saying, maybe we're just looking at this completely backwards. It's not that the universe is perfectly tuned for us, it's that we are tuned to the universe. Life simply adapted to whatever conditions it found itself in. We evolved to fit the universe, not the other way around.
And the second response, well, it sounds like something out of science fiction, but it comes from serious theoretical physics. The multiverse. The idea is that our universe might just be one of countless others, each with its own set of rules. If that's the case, then it's not surprising at all that we find ourselves in a universe that can support life. It's like a cosmic lottery. If you buy one ticket and win, it feels like a miracle. But if trillions of tickets are printed, it's a certainty that someone is going to win. We just happen to live in the universe that won.
But here's the really crucial thing to remember. The case for evolution isn't built on one piece of evidence. It's built on what scientists call a convergence of evidence. Think of it like a detective story. You have fingerprints, a witness, DNA, phone records. When they all point to the exact same suspect, that's when you know you've got your guy. It's the same with evolution. Evidence from genetics, from geology, from anatomy, from fossils, they all jump together and tell the same story. That's what makes it so powerful.
And this idea of convergence, it raises some pretty awkward questions for the intelligent designer idea. For example, if we were designed from scratch by a perfect creator, why do we have all this weird leftover junk? We're talking about vestigial structures, things like the coccyx, our tailbone, literally the remnant of a tail we don't have. Or goosebumps, that thing our bodies do to fluff up fur we no longer have to look bigger. These things make zero sense from a perfect design perspective, but as leftovers from our evolutionary past, they make perfect sense.
So let's pull it all together. Why does this all matter? Why is Darwin's murderous idea still considered one of the most important concepts in all of human history?
Because it's about so much more than biology. Darwin didn't just change how we see animals and plants. He fundamentally changed how we see ourselves. He shifted our entire place in the cosmos. We went from thinking we were the center of the universe, the whole point of creation, to understanding that we're one small, beautiful, and temporary branch on a vast, ancient, and ever-growing tree of life.
And that leaves us with a final, massive question. And this one isn't for science to answer, it's for you. It's for all of us. In this vast, unguided universe that Darwin showed us, does that diminish our meaning? Does it make us feel small and pointless? Or does it do the opposite? Does it empower us? Does it free us to create our own meaning right here, right now? It's a huge question, and it's just as vital today as it was when Darwin first confessed his murder.